opening statement goes to Mr. Nuno. Take a moment to introduce yourself and your platform.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Nuno, and I'm running for student trustee. I'm studying both economics and urban public affairs, and as a junior, I feel that I am capable of becoming the next student trustee and being a champion of change. Change doesn't come easy. It comes with talking, most importantly listening, and carrying out with the ideas that I set out to accomplish. And so my platform consists of promoting professional development for all students starting at orientation, enhancing campus communication amongst all student leaders and faculty and staff, and lastly, further improving campus pride. Thank you.
Statement now goes to Mr. Hall.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Jawan Hall. I'm a third-year student here at UIC. I'm also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I'm a member of the Honors College. I'm the secretary for the Black Student Union, and I'm also an intern at the U.S. Attorney's Office. My opponent wants to champion change. I want to bring change. That's my platform, right? I want to see the UPass expanded to Metro. I want to see the UPass expanded to PACE without that being an additional charge to students here at UIC. I want to see campus care expanded year-round here at this institution. I want to see graduate students actually make a living wage at this institution, so they're not burdened with additional things as far as like having to work, as well as carrying a full-time load on their own. I want to see diversity brought forth in the faculty as well as in the student body. I want campus safety addressed at this institution. I feel as if our resources around campus safety are not being allocated in a way that's as efficient as possible. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm running for this position because I feel like I have the experience and the know-how to get things done. So again, not champion change, I want to bring change.
Okay. Well, that actually leads into my first question, which goes to Mr. Hall first. Why are you running for this position?
So glad you asked me that. Essentially, I feel like I'm a proven leader, right? So I'm not coming at this from the sense of, I want to do this because I want to pad my resume. I'm not coming at this from the position of, I want to do something because I just feel like it'll look good. Everywhere I've been, everything that I've done, I've been successful at doing so. As a veteran, deployed 3 times overseas, successfully, and came back and was meritoriously promoted, meritoriously awarded each one of my deployments. When I moved back to Chicago and became active as a student, my previous institution, I transferred here from city colleges. I was student government president at Kennedy King College. I was successful there. Again, awarded several times for my leadership and exemplary service to students. I want to continue that tradition. Since I've been at UIC, I believe I've been able to do that in some form of way. Been active with the Black Student Union. I've been active with the Veteran Student Association. And I've taken the initiative to talk to students, as well as faculty and administration, about some of the issues that they see that exist at this institution, and come up with solutions, try to come up with ways that I feel are pragmatic and realistic in order to bring forth some positive change and help UIC grow.
Thank you. Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal, because we're the candidate. No rebuttal,
Okay.
Joanne looks like we're the candidate.
So, question goes to you. Why are you for this position?
I've been at UIC for 3 years, and as an eager freshman, I volunteered 300 hours at the Daily Center, where I got to speak with lots of Chicagoans about the struggles that they've faced. And I'm telling you, growing up as an 18-year-old kid thinking, oh, college is going to change my life, how's it going to change my life for the better? Speaking with real people with actual problems that I couldn't even imagine, you can't even read in a book, it really humbles you. And it humbles you to take advantage of the resources that you're given, especially as a young Mexican American. At the end of my freshman year, I became president of the Pre-Law Society. A society, for the most part, that was pretty much inactive. Now, as a junior, that society has a fully operational website. We have the trust of our faculty advisor, Professor Evan McKenzie, and cooperation with the LAS Pre-Law advisor, Adekemi Fileti Dosunumu. And the thing that makes me want to run for this position is that I know I'm not going to be here 1 year from now. I'll be applying to graduate school. I can't be here forever. Part of my campaign is training future leaders. Because the beauty of college, or at least an undergraduate degree, is you're only here for 4 years. You got to make the most of it. Part of me making the most of it is training the next generation of student leaders. making them care, making them champion voices that can be heard. Not everybody is privileged enough to be in student government. People work part-time jobs. People have to play mom and dad for their brother and sister because their mom and dad are working full-time jobs. I want to take advantage of my situation and train the next generation of student leaders as your next student trustee.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
I'd just like to remind Mr. Nuno that the job of the student trustee isn't to train future leaders, it's to bring change to the students who are here and prepare to give guidance to those who come and seek it. He said he was going to be here for another year. I believe that the change we need is going to take 2 years. That's how long I'm going to be here, and that's what I intend on doing. Being here to plan on being a student trustee for this upcoming year, and I plan on running for re-election to make sure all the changes that need to happen to this institution actually happen.
Question now goes to Mr. Nuno. What do you see as the primary function as the student member board of trustee position?
The primary function of the student trustee position is multifaceted. You have to wear many hats. You have to, one, be the face of the university to an extent, but you also have to be a medium in which student leaders, faculty, and staff can communicate amongst each other. You are a quasi-member of the student government, but you're also a regular student. And I think that's what I bring most to the student trustee position as a person wearing many different hats, as a leader, a communicator, somebody that listens, is I really do believe in that student part. I am a student. I have taken full course load. I have 18 credit hours. I'm doing dual degrees and going to graduate in 4 years. And we have to remind ourselves as leaders that the people we come in contact with every day have different stories. We have over 27,000 different people at this university that all have different stories. And part of what I will be enjoying as your next student trustee is listening to those stories, listening to the problems people face, and coming up with solutions. Because, as Mr. Hall has reminded me, I will not be here forever. I want to train people to take advantage of how to listen, how to bring conversations into the room, and leave them room with a solution to the problems that people face.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
I'm not rebuttal.
Okay, the question goes to Mr. Hall. What do you see as the primary function of a student member board of trustee position?
Yeah, so I agree with majority of what Mr. Nuno said as far as being able to be a face of the institution. But I also think that an important aspect is being able to advocate for students at the Board of Trustee level. So when any legislation or any new proposals come forth in front of the Board of Trustees, being an advocate on how students at UIC will feel about that, right? Like being able to bring that student experience to the Board of Trustees, which is one thing that I've continuously tried to do even throughout my time is not being a member of the Board of Trustees. This is why I've had conversations with members of the Board of Trustees in order to give that student perspective without doing it. And I want to be able to do it from the board position in order to just give some weight to what it is I'm saying.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal.
Next question. What do you see are the 3 greatest challenges facing UIC currently? Question to Mr. Hall.
3 biggest challenges to the institution? The institution or students to the institution?
Yeah, let's go with the institution.
The institution. Challenges I see hindering the institution, number one is really probably around diversity. Diversity is something that UIC tends to try to pride itself on, but I think I can speak for quite a few people when I say that many students know that that's not really a reality. When you look at the 1,728 faculty, full-time faculty members that we have here, right? Only 3% of them are African-American women. Only 3% of them are African-American Latinas. Only 3% are Latino. And that's a huge issue at this institution. When you look at the student body, less than 10% is African-American. African-American and Latino students suffer from some of the worst graduation rates at this institution. And that's not something that's becoming of an institution that wants to be a world-class institution. So when we talk about like real issues, like that's probably like one of the most pressing issues that I think we really have the ability to overcome if we put our minds to it and try to work together to overcome it. Secondly, I think campus safety is a huge issue. When you look at the fact that our UIC Police Department has an $8.3 million budget, yet the website is horrible. It's pretty difficult to get information around like crime statistics. They have 2 different websites that are like completely like difficult to guide and like get information from. And I just feel as if the allocations around that budget is not used in a way that's really conducive to student safety. So that would probably be the second biggest thing. Third, I think just being able to engage students is an issue as well. So students at UIC really are not involved in this institution. The institution itself just needs an overhaul. We can no longer afford to be a commuter campus. If we want to be a world-class institution, if we want to be in a conversation with the University of Chicago, the Northwesterns, the Harvards, the Yales, then we have to grow the institution and change the face of it.
Thank you. Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal.
Okay. And question to Mr. Nuno.
The 3 biggest challenges that I see in the next year for UIC is, number 1, communication. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I know that around 11:55 each night, I get around 4 or 5 different mass mails. That's fine. I have the patience to read that. But what I would like to see change as far as communication is maybe having a more student-friendly version of mass mail, or instead of getting maybe 5, 10, or even 3 mass mails a night, you get 1 email from UIC with hyperlinks to the different mass mails that you would normally get. That's just one example of how I would like to improve communication. The second example is, I love UIC news, but I truly believe there needs to be a UIC student-led newspaper. There needs to be a voice from the students' perspective. And when it becomes accessible, not every morning from mass mail, but from, hey, check out so-and-so's blog, check out so-and-so's photos of the day, check out so-and-so's op-ed. That's powerful. That's powerful because now you get students saying, well, this isn't coming from Susan Teggett's campus housing, this isn't coming from the dean of the college, this is coming from that student in my Urban Planning Studies 101 class. That says something. The second issue that I would say is big is campus pride. I'm taking pride in when we go to school. It is a privilege to attend this university because I believe it's a great public university. However, it does bring some questions when people don't take into consideration, we are a commuter campus. We're also a campus that is trying to adjust from having expenditures, and now we're about to get those expenditures cut. And I would like to increase the activity among student leaders here on campus. And the last thing that I would like to increase is professional development among students. When you are at orientation, you get exposed to a lot of different news, but one thing that you don't necessarily get exposed to is how to take yourself as a young professional.
I think those are like great initiatives. I just feel as if from the student member of the Board of Trustees position, that's not something that should be addressed from there. Communication and involvement for students is something that can probably be handled by the Undergraduate Student Government Association.
Of the challenges you identified, please select one and address how, and can you tell us how you hope to address that challenge? Question to Mr. Nuno first.
I would like to talk more about my professional development platform. As a young student, 18 years old, you go into orientation, you get exposed to the college lifestyle, you get exposed to Chicago. But one thing that you don't necessarily get exposed to is, how do I go from being an 18-year-old young person to being a 22-year-old graduate of UIC on the job market? What are the things I need to do to present myself in today's job market? That comes from learning how to train students to be professional speakers, to learning how to use professional tools like LinkedIn. One of my biggest concerns is making sure that every student feels like they can get a job when they leave here. That's important to me. That's one of my values, is that you get a value of your education. And I want to make sure that the next generation of students, whether it be freshmen, juniors, sophomores, know how to network, know how to talk to people, know how to say, these are my skills and this is what I bring. That's how I plan to increase professional development as a student trustee.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Okay, question then to Mr. Hall.
Can you read the question? I'm sorry.
Of the challenges you identified, please select one, and can you
been like such a big thing and been like an ongoing issue. I think the problem around like just getting the UPass expanded to include Metro is really one that can be solved by just really taking a hardcore look at the individuals who make the decisions on things like that, right? So in case anybody doesn't know, 2011 there was a universal fare card bill that was passed by the Illinois legislature, which required RTA subsidiary public transportation systems, CTA, PACE, and Metro to have a universal fare card, which happened to be Ventra, the new UPass. So I think what we need to be able, what I plan on doing, what I intend to do, what I will do once I win, is go forth and talk to board members at RTA, talk to board members with PACE, talk to the board members at CTA, talk to the board members at Metro, and get them all on the same page and let them understand how big of an issue this is for students here at UIC, how students travel from DuPage County, how students travel from south suburbs, how students come from west suburbs, and need to be able to access Metro and PACE all via their venture card without having to pay an extra, without having to incur any extra financial burden.
Rebuttal to Mr. Newell.
My only rebuttal would be that to maybe give some more details to the plan would be have those conversations with the representatives from PACE, CTA, and Ventra, but take it a step further. If we don't like what they're saying, let's advocate. Let's organize. Let's show Ventra, PACE, and Metro. Sorry for repeating one of them. That we care. That we got a voice. That we're upset. Let's transform opinions or judgments into solid statements of solidarity. That as students, we want this. That's the only thing I would say to Mr. Hall's opinion.
Thank you. Next question. The student member board of trustee position represents all students on campus. Can you tell us how you hope to engage graduate and professional students in the conversation? Question goes to Mr. Hall.
I'm so glad you asked me that too. So I've actually already started engaging graduate students and professional students on this campus. I've been engaging them since I stepped foot on this campus in January of last year. Take that back. The summer of 2013 when I took summer courses here as I was preparing to transfer in. So I've already talked to them about issues that exist. I've talked to the graduate employee organization around the upcoming contract negotiation. I'm meeting with the graduate student council later this afternoon to talk about my platform. I've talked to professional healthcare students around issues that exist for them around diversity and inclusion as well. Yeah, I've already done that. I've talked to them about these issues. I'm in the works now trying to come up with strategic solutions, pragmatic solutions, solutions that work for us and that will move the university forward. So, been there, done that.
Rebuttal to Mr. Newell.
I have no hesitation that both Mr. Hall and I can speak to graduate students. That's not my concern. My concern is, as a freshman student, do you have the trust in yourself to have talks or conversations with graduate students? Maybe not, because I believe that as an incoming freshman, graduate school or law school or medical school are such big abstract things that talking to an actual student can seem intimidating. And so may I go into my answer to the question. Although I possess the ability to speak to graduate students comfortably, and I'm fortunate enough to be taking a graduate level class right now on the cause of urban planning and speak with different PhD students and different master students, the biggest thing I see is how can we bring some uniformity and solidarity between the undergraduate body and the graduate body. How I think that we can strengthen that connection between the undergraduates and the graduates will also fall back on my advocacy for a student-led newspaper. Getting voices from graduate students, or also going to orientation and getting graduate students to talk about it, or having a panel from professional students from med school, law school, graduate school, so that as a freshman, you see what medical students look like. They don't look any different than you and I. They're just a little bit older, and they've gone through some things that, as an 18-year-old, might be useful for you to hear.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Can we continue along that same line? And as far as, we talked about engaging graduate and professional students. What do you think their challenges are? Are they different than the undergraduate student? Question to Mr. Newell.
Yes, they are a little bit more different. They're a little bit more focused because just it comes with age that you a little bit more concerned with tuition raises, or you're a little bit more concerned with budgets, and you're a little bit more concerned with things that are not necessarily happening at UIC, but things that are happening around the University of Illinois system as a whole. One thing that I know that graduate students are concerned of is how the proposed UIC medical school will impact enrollment rates at UIC. And so again, going back to my student newspaper idea or other ideas, is just getting graduate concerns out there. It's not, this school is undergraduates and graduates, and both concerns should be heard by all students, not just concerns regarding graduate students heard by graduate students, but concerns heard from both sides.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Any questions, Mr. Hall?
Graduate student issues. So the issues again, like, because I've talked to graduate students, so I know that graduate employees are extremely concerned about the medical school, just as Mr. Nuno said. Also concerned about their concerns around campus care, accessibility and affordability around campus care, some of the coverages around campus care, which is why campus care is one of my top issues that I want to see addressed here at this institution. Graduate students also have a lot of issues that most undergrads don't go through. So graduate students being a little bit older, sometimes you have a family, which is one of the reasons why the graduate students are also concerned around this upcoming contract. Right now, graduate students are making graduate employees at the institution make about $16,000 a year based off their last contract. And when you think about that, if you have a family to support, if you have a child to support, that's not a lot of money. There was just an article that came out on DNA Info today that said the median one-bedroom apartment in Chicago is like $1,600 a month. And that's ridiculous when you think about what it is we're paying our graduate employees, students here. And that's crazy. So yeah, I mean, I understand those issues. I'm aware of the issues that graduate students have, as well as those issues that undergraduate students have. And I do plan on working on those as well.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal.
You both have talked about really lofty goals that you hope to accomplish if elected to the position. Can we ask you, how do you hope to accomplish some of those goals? You can choose one. Question goes to Mr. Hall.
Okay. It's a similar question from what the UPass. Talked about how we going to accomplish goals. We talked about the PACE, RTACT.
Okay.
Talking about different goals. Okay. Cool. So I guess we'll talk about campus care, which is another huge issue. I believe that around campus care, what we need to do is just, and I really don't think like it's a very difficult thing. So students actually qualify for campus care year-round, but many students don't know this. I talked to a student a couple of weeks ago, and I was explaining this to him. And he was telling me that last summer he broke his finger, but had no idea that he actually qualified for campus care. So he didn't opt in for it over the summer. So he had to pay out of pocket upwards of $500 to go see a doctor. I think at this institution, it should be incumbent upon us, especially being in President Obama's home state, with the coverage of the Affordable Care Act, that we should just go ahead and include students year-round to be covered within campus care. I think that's a pretty simple thing. I don't think that doesn't take we don't have to have a lobby day. We don't need to go talk to a state senator or a state rep. UIC should just give students, automatically enroll students in campus care year-round. I think it's as simple as that.
Mr. Nuno.
My rebuttal is the plain fact that talking about insurance when you're 18 years old is just about as intimidating as it gets. It's complex, and that's okay, but what I think is not okay is not having those conversations about insurance at orientation or further along your freshman year. We need to start having this conversation of, okay, what is campus care? What should you be doing with it? Should there be more student-friendly websites about how you register for campus care? What are the adverse effects of opting out? Yes. Should we start having more student advisory boards revolving around campus care? Yes. These are the types of things I'll be doing as a student trustee.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
I'd like to let Mr. Nuno know that most students do opt out of campus care.
Okay, next one. Next question. As you're aware, UIC is...
I didn't answer the question. It's okay. It's all right.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
So I talked a lot about professional development, but I actually want to piggyback off what the candidates for undergraduate student president were asked, and they were asked, well, there's a million different concerns on campus. How are we going to improve communication? One thing that I would like to get done after my time serving as a student trustee is creating a student leadership council here at UIC that brings forth every president or vice president from every student org to meet once a month. Talk. What are your guys' accomplishments? What are your guys' concerns? Yes. Is it going to change the way communication happens at UIC? No. But what's important is that it's a start.
As you're aware, UIC is facing a large cut in its state budget. If elected, what would you advocate for to ensure, or try to ensure, that programs and services are not severely impacted? Question to Mr. Nuno.
I would try to make sure that no funding gets cut for, there's a lot of different things, but if I had to fight for two, it would be mental health services here at UIC and multicultural funding. I believe that students go through a lot of stress, and like I said, there's over 27,000 different stories here at UIC. There's no way that we can be aware of all of them. That's why we have places like the Wellness Center and places for students to go talk to somebody, receive services. These are important. These are the hidden battles that that aren't necessarily going to get publicized on UIC News or on someone's Facebook page. Stress, anxiety, depression are all very real things here at UIC. And the second thing about multiculturalism, we can't say that we're a diverse school without funding the hubs that promote diversity here on this campus.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
I have no rebuttal.
And a question to Mr. Hall.
Can you give me the question again?
As you are aware, UIC is facing a large cut in its state budget. If elected, what would you advocate for that would not severely impact the quality of services and programs?
So the first thing I would advocate for is just around funding for the institution. So I think the biggest thing we need to make sure is, okay, if the budget is cut, what's being cut that's impacting UIC? What's being cut that's going to impact student readiness and student success at this institution? And then advocating on behalf of those things. As said previously in the last debate, MAP grants won't be cut. So ensuring things that MAP grants aren't cut, ensuring things like school funding isn't cut. And if it does come down to it, then I think the next thing we would have to do is talk with some of the higher level administrators and actually take a hardcore look at our budget and look at what we are cutting and make sure that the things that do get cut from the institution don't impact students, or students are impacted last.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal.
This primarily goes to Mr. Hall. You mentioned that regarding your previous question that it's not the job of the student trustee to promote campus pride, that you should rather leave it up to the president.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear you. Oh, it's not the job of the student trustee to do.
Is this loud?
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned before how it's, you said it's not the job of the student trustee to promote campus pride, but rather it should be left to the president or something along those lines.
I don't think I said that.
You did say that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you mentioned something about it's not being your responsibility as a student trustee to advocate for something or for students, but rather you should leave it up to the president of the undergraduate student government. So do you feel that student trustee and president shouldn't work together, that they should have separate paths that they should go in? Or do you think that they should work together to enhance things like campus pride?
So I just want to clarify what I did say. So what I said was I don't think it's the job of the student trustee to train another student leader like over that entire year, right? That's what I said. So to answer your second question, I definitely believe it's the job of the student trustee to work with the undergraduate student government. Just like the student trustee should work with the graduate student council as well. Just like the student trustee should work with every single student organization on this campus. Just like the student trustee should work with students who aren't involved on the campus. Just like the student trustee should work with the administrators and the faculty of this institution. I think it's the job of the student trustee to represent this entire institution. So So everybody from that undeclared freshman, that freshman with the undeclared major, to that fourth year medical student who's about to have their white coat ceremony, to the chancellor sitting, you know, on top at right? So everybody in this institution, all the way down to that person who bringing the food and water here for us and is going to clean up after we leave. That's what the job of the student trustee is to do, to represent all of those individuals. Answer your question? Cool.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nino.
My rebuttal is that there is now one student that I'm going to be training. I'm going to be training as many students as I can. That's my value. My value is leadership should be passed on, not possessed by one or two people. It should be spread. And how do you do that? You have conversations with people. All people. Like you said, my sister is that undeclared freshman that doesn't know what she's going to be doing. I have conversations with her. Does sometimes she listen to me? Yeah, sometimes she doesn't. But what my sister does is she gives me a nice channel that here at UIC, leadership can be taught. It's not something that only one or two people can learn. Everybody can learn it. And I feel I am that person that can take that responsibility of teaching leadership to others.
You can answer the question.
I do believe it's the responsibility of the trustee to share and collaborate with the undergraduate student government president.
Okay. Question in the back.
Hello. Can you guys both go into detail about how you actually plan on working with the undergraduate student government and the graduate student council?
Question goes to Mr. Nuno first.
Regardless of the results of March 11th or March 12th, I will continue being the co-chair of the Campus Housing Student Experience Committee and making sure that student voices in the residence halls are being heard. Going forward to my senior year, I'll be making sure that I am trying to become an assembly member of the undergraduate student government if I'm not elected student trustee, and keep pushing these things like the admissions and advising committee or the commuter student experience committee. There are good initiatives in the undergraduate student government that I don't want to change. I want to keep promoting them. I don't want to see the initiatives that have taken place this year die with new leadership.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Question to Mr. Hall.
Undergraduate student government as well as graduate student council, right? So again, like I believe that since I've been here, I've done a pretty good job as far as like just cultivating relationships with students who are involved on campus. My plan going forward is to continue to cultivate those relationships, to continue them going. Regardless of the outcome next week, I plan on still being involved on this campus. So that means continuing to work with graduate students around their issues, and if they need support, then trying to get people out to support their events. If that means, you know, talking to undergrads, the USG, and if they need people to come out to support their events, being able to do that as well. So that's essentially how I plan on doing it, by continuing to cultivate the relationships I've already established at the institution.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal.
This question is for both candidates. How will you utilize existing as well as establish new modes for those of us that elect you, those of us you represent, to hold y'all accountable to all of this y'all are promising us?
Question to Mr. Hall.
It's a really good question. I think one thing that hinders students from being able to hold student elected officials accountable is a lack of communication, which has been, I guess, like a running theme throughout the day-to-day. So one of my initiatives will be to establish a monthly newsletter, so you can know what's going on. You can know where we at with particular initiatives. If you feel as if it hasn't been, you know, answered or delivered upon, or you know, whatever your issue is, or whatever you feel needs to be addressed hasn't been addressed, then as a result of that, come next year election time, you can, you know, vote individuals out. You cannot not support me. And also just making myself accessible, right? So like even right now, my website, like my email address is up there, my Facebook page is out there. I'm open to giving out my cell phone number as long as you don't call me after 10 o'clock. Like seriously, like I want to be accessible in order to be held accountable. And so for me, like that's how I plan on being held accountable by students.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nuno.
No rebuttal, but may I answer the question?
Yes.
You know, being president of the Pre-Law Society and being a former Hall Council president, I know that emails, I know that holding office hours are good ideas, but the bottom line is sometimes people don't come. Just because they don't come doesn't mean that those things should be there. If I support something or I contradict myself, I want to see faces in my office that's on the 3rd floor of SCE. I want to see people there, so I'll have my office hours posted outside my office. I'll have my email out there. I'll have my cell phone out there. I will make sure that my schedule is consistent and that I'm available for one-on-one meetings or group meetings. If I do something wrong, I want to be there and have people tell me. If I do something right, I want to have people there and say, no, good job.
Okay, rebuttals, Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Okay, we had a question.
All right. This question is for both candidates. I'm just curious, what initiatives have you both worked on so far that would benefit UIC, and what initiative have you worked on at UIC that you're most proud of?
Question first to Mr. Newman.
I'm sorry, Christian, could you repeat the last part of your question? I did not hear it.
What initiative have you worked on here at UIC that you're most proud of?
It's been a busy semester for me. I'll be applying to graduate school in the fall. I'm applying to different summer programs. I got a national scholarship interview coming up next week. But the thing that I'm most proud of is my involvement with the Campus Housing Student Experience Committee. It has not been easy getting people to show up at our meetings. It has not been easy to schedule meetings with campus housing directors and staff or regular residents. But what I'm most proud about it is that even though it's been challenging for me, and sometimes it makes me want to pull my hair out and be like, what do I have to do to get students to show up to these meetings? Is the fact that every now and then you meet a student leader who's a freshman, that's riled up, that's passionate, and they say, Christian, I want to fix campus housing. How do I do it? And what makes me proud about it being there is that I get to be the person to say, listen, this is how you go about it. You're angry, you're upset, you funnel that emotion into concrete steps. That's how you do it. And so I'm proud of that because I have a chance to interact with students who are blossoming student leaders.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
No rebuttal.
Question to Mr. Hall.
Initiatives I'm most proud of. I can only pick one. I get one. Okay. I got a couple initiatives. I'll try to stay within my time. So number one, I've actually, around the diversity issue, right? So I've worked with the African American Enrollment and Recruitment Initiative here at UIC. We've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the issues, and we've also looked at what universities who've been able to increase the number of minority students at their institutions have done. And I'm proud to say that a lot of those policies are in the works right now and going through the appropriate administrative channels to hopefully be implemented at UIC within the next year or two. I'm also extremely proud of the fact that I was able to go advocate on behalf of UIC for the Obama Presidential Library. As a result, very surprisingly, I was surprised at least anyway, that we were actually named as one of the finalists. Not because I don't think this institution isn't worthy, but I understand how money and politics can play a huge role in something like that, right? For us to have to be up against the University of Chicago, the Columbia University in New York, like that's a huge thing to have to overcome. And as a result, again, just the hard work. I've done a lot of work behind the scenes with this as well. So I've talked to members of the Board of Trustees, I've emailed them, I've talked to state legislators, I've talked to our congressmen, not just as a part of UIC, but just as a student, right, as myself. And I think that, moving forward, like we really looking like we're in a really good position for this. I don't know if you've all heard this, but there's actually a unity breakfast that's happening with UIC and University of Chicago to try to make sure that that UIC has some part of the presidential library as a result. I've actually advocated on behalf of UIC moving beyond just a presidential library, but actually doing something to institutionalize the First Lady, because I feel as if we don't give enough credit to the sacrifices that women have made in order for their husbands to move on and be president. So that's been a huge thing that I've tried to advocate for.
Time.
Okay.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nunez.
No rebuttal.
Hi, my name is Lydia Hinton. I'm with the Black Student Community Resource Sharing Network. And I just have a question. You're really big on leadership, I see up here. And UIC and the city colleges of Chicago have a partnership where they can transfer students in with a certain amount of credits and accept them for a degree. And my thing is, how will we help transfer students up into these leadership positions? And what types of resources will you link them to? And what types of programs will you ensure stay funded by the state or by the board?
That's a good question. I think it's great that you guys are going to be working with graduate students, professional students, everybody across the board. But both of you guys have kind of mentioned this age factor and how you're 18 or you're 19. I'm 27 and I'm getting my PhD, and that can be kind of this non-traditional population. And I feel like there's a lot of non-traditional populations at this campus. So how do you kind of create that sense that it's not how old you are, but kind of that campus pride that you're here at UIC no matter where you came from, how old you are, and kind of just, I guess, creating that relationship.
Question to Mr. Hall first.
Okay, I'm a non-traditional student. I'm 28 years old. And I think the thing is kind of just trying to relate to other students and just linking students up together. So I think one of the, I'm not sure if it was Christian or if it was during the presidential debate, they were talking about like a social, right? So I think creating opportunities for students to get together and socialize and understand that, you know, you're not that much different from me. You have issues just like I do. You go to class just like I do. Creating opportunities for that is what can kind of help foster that, you know, that understanding, that mutual understanding between individuals. Because again, just like you said, you know, 27, 28, my issues are a lot different. I got a son that I got to go home and cook dinner for tonight, right? And then study with him after that, and then come back to school. But I think at the same time, like there are a lot of similarities. Like we both have midterms coming up, and we both are, you know, preparing for our finals, and we both are, you know, upset that I couldn't get into that class that I really needed for next semester. So I think just creating opportunities and spaces in which individuals can get together and just articulate that to each other is really what will help create for a better campus feel around, you know, undergrads, graduate students, and non-traditional students.
Rebuttal to Mr. Nunez?
No rebuttal. May I answer the question?
Yes.
Just sharing stories. Just sharing stories amongst students. I mean, I know a very popular page right now is Humans of UIC, where people, you know, you get to see an actual UIC student, but they get to share their story. And sometimes it's a story about, hey, I'm sitting in my cab, I procrastinate on paper. But sometimes it's actually a narrative about the struggles that they face. If I could take anything, learn anything from Humans of UIC, it'd be, you know, with advocating for a student-led newspaper, it's getting student voices there. Not just, you know, this is how to survive midterms week, but, you know, this is what happens when you're late to an interview. This is how you react. This is what you do when a teacher puts you down in class. This is how you react when you get a passive-aggressive email. Just things that can help students relate to each other. But specifically for non-traditional students, it's getting those narratives out there. This is my story. It's not a high school, college, graduate. It's not linear, and that's okay. That's the message I would like to promote.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall?
No rebuttal.
I think we had a question.
Hi there, this question is directed to Mr. Hall. Just to backtrack into your initiatives, you said that you want to expand some of the UPass to Metra and PACE, and the second one was to expand on the healthcare for students. I know that tuition has been one of the larger, worries about for students here. How would you go about expanding those initiatives without seeing spikes in fees for students? And so on both the PACE and on healthcare.
All right, so first of all, around with the campus care, so students are already eligible for campus care year round, right? So that's not students have to opt into it over the summer. So the issue around that is not really, it's not a fee-based thing or monetary thing. It's more so of an administrative thing that just needs to take place in order for students to have access to that. Now around like the Metra Pass, so currently students who use Metra are paying around on average like $170, $180 a month to get a Metra Pass. There's an initiative, there was an initiative, I'm not sure if it's going to be on the ballot, but I know there was an initiative going around to try to get a reduced fare for students who use Metra. I think it would be much more wise for students who are already paying Metra to get a reduced fare added on to their UPass rather than having them pay that every single month. So instead of paying $170 every month throughout the entire school year, maybe you're paying $200 extra on your UPass, right? I just think that seems a little bit more logical because you save it in the long run. Answer your question? All right, cool.
You can opt to answer the question if you like.
No, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So, my question is, as a student trustee, there are a lot of things that you can influence, but that ultimately are out of your hands. But there are also a lot of things that you can influence and actually make happen. So my question is, out of the things that are within your control, what change do you plan to effect within your term?
Question goes to Mr. Nuno first.
As a president of the Pre-Law Society for 2 years, I know the struggles of being a student leader and trying to get reserve space, trying to obtain funding, trying to advertise events. And so one of the things that I would like to actually, one of the things that's in my control is clarifying some of these techniques that student leaders can use when trying to reserve a meeting room. Do students know that you can reserve a meeting room at University Hall online and they'll let you know 24 hours later? Probably not. Little picadillos like that need to be made aware to the masses. And so one thing that I could do is just, me personally, or me also advocating to the students, is sharing. Student leaders, write down what you did. Write down, who you talk to, who you go to. Like if you're trying to get SoFab money, who do you talk to? Just things like that.
Rebuttal to Mr. Hall.
Okay, so first, I just refuse to believe that anything is like out of our hands, right? I just believe that it's all about being strategic around the issues that you want to address and knowing who to go to and who to talk to and who to cultivate relationships with and knowing how to address the issue in order to get it done. So I guess the biggest thing for me, again, is really just it centers around this UPass thing. I don't believe that's out of my hands. I understand there's a RTA board. I understand that there's a PACE board. I understand that there's a CTA board. But I don't believe that just because those are the individuals who have the power and the authority to say yes or no, that it's out of our hands as students, it's out of my hands as a trustee to be able to advocate and get something like that done. So that's the one thing that I really want to see get done, and that's what I'm going to advocate to get done.
Are there any other questions?
My question is, what importance, if any, do you place on working with student groups and student organizations on campus that relate to the issues that you're most concerned with achieving while you're a student trustee?
Question first to Mr. Hall.
Can you give me that question one more time? What issue, you said how do we plan on working with student groups?
Yeah, what importance do you place on working with student groups that relate to the issues that you're really concerned with?
Okay, so yeah, I think it's extremely important to make sure that voices, right, are heard around these issues. So when we talked about diversity, we talk about access and availability of resources. We know we got this whole issue going on right now with undocumented students, right? So undocumented students right now can't run for the Board of Trustees because of this state law that was passed last year. So I think as a student trustee, it's not my job to use my agency or my privilege to speak to this issue, but it's my job to use my agency to give a platform for that issue to be addressed. And that's one of the big things I think as a student trustee that I would love to do, to just use my agency to put a platform here and give the microphone so people can speak to these issues that exist. So African American students who feel underrepresented can speak to those issues. So graduate students who feel as if they should have a better contract can speak to their issues. Just using my agency to get issues addressed and bring some light to them, because the student trustee has the ability to do that.
Question to Mr. Nuno.
It's everything. Student organizations are the lifeblood of activity here on campus. I know, I'm a 2-year president of a student organization, and I know how hard it can be when you're trying to do an event or you're trying to rally around a cause, but you don't have necessarily the experience behind it, and you want to know how do I go about it. And one of the things that I'll be doing as your next student trustee is getting people together, having conversations. If you're planning an event, who are the people that need to be in this room? Right? How can we go about advertising this event well enough so that you don't just get 10 people showing up? You don't aim for 10, you aim for 50. But most importantly is how can we document those conversations so that it's not just our generation that knows how to do X and Y, it's future generations. So to answer your question is, I place interacting with student organizations as my top priority.
That was our last question, so now we will move to closing statements. And so since Mr. Nuno opened, we'll have him open his first, and then Mr. Hall.
In closing, thank you guys for giving 2 hours of your time to be here, or 30 minutes of your time. Just thank you for showing up. It means a lot. I know for every candidate, we really appreciate seeing a face here. Win or lose, I hope to continue to train the next generation of student leaders and just, make sure that students get heard, that your concerns matter, and that no matter the size of your problem, no matter the depth of your problem, there is a solution to it. It may not happen overnight, but what can happen is the conversations about how we can solve some of the problems we're facing today. Thank you for your time.
Now to Mr. Hall.
This election is about creating an opportunity for change at this institution. I think Christian is a very talented leader. But I think if you wanted to use like a metaphor, right? If it's crunch time in the fourth quarter, Game 7 of the championship series, are you gonna get the ball to Kobe Bryant, or are you gonna give it to Michael Jordan? Right? Just putting that out there, right? So, I mean, the thing is, we wanna win, right? We have to do something for students. We have to be able to go with somebody who has experience, who has a proven track record, who has the proven ability to get things done. And that's what I represent. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for your time.
Can we give a round of applause for